Hello aspirants, welcome to Mohan Reddy Academy. So in the last class we have understood about the scheme of the examination of UPSC, and we also understood about some doubts what usually aspirants have about anthropology, and apart from that we also understood about the syllabus of paper 1 in anthropology. So in today's session let us understand what all the things which are, or what all the chapters which are mentioned in paper 2. So now let us try to debunk anthropology optional syllabus paper 2. So if you are talking about paper 2, as we have already understood in the paper 1 while discussing about paper 1, so mostly whenever we are talking about the optional subject, usually paper 1 covers about the global aspects and the paper 2 always talks about the Indian aspects in majority of the optional subjects. Okay, just like that, even in anthropology also, paper 2 talks about Indian anthropology. It talks about Indian anthropology, and here 1.1 starts with evolution of Indian culture and civilization. So here when we take up the classes, so in the Mohan Reddy Academy app, when we take up the classes we won't study like this. Okay, ऐसा independent topic wise हम नहीं पढ़ेंगे. So if you remember in paper 1 1.8 A, it talks about what? It talks about 1.8 A and B talks about the archaeological anthropology. इन दोनों को क्लब करके, so apart from that 1.1 in paper 2, इन दोनों को क्लब करके ही हम पढ़ेंगे. Okay, so what is this 1.1 in paper 2 is talking about? It is talking about evolution of Indian culture and civilization. So we already understood that anthropology discusses about the three aspects of humankind, that is biological, cultural and societal aspects of humankind. When we are talking about three aspects, we also understand about how the culture and society has evolved in due course of time. In that context, in India, how this culture has established, and this topic is all about that. How did the culture has established and eventually how it has given rise to civilization. So in this context, we will understand about the Paleolithic, Meso, Neo and Chalco. So we already understood what are the meanings of Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic and Chalcolithic. In the last class I have explained that they are derived from the Greek language and they are combination of two words, where lithic in the suffix stands for stone. Lithic in the suffix stands for stone, and the paleo here it stands for old. Okay, Meso stands for middle and the Neo stands for new, and apart from that Chalco stands for copper. Okay, so this is how they are actually. So it is copper stone age, and here it is new stone age. Meso means middle stone age and paleo means old stone age. So when you are talking about the time periods of all these stone ages, okay, Paleolithic age spans much amount of time, क्योंकि it is from the time immemorial and it zeros down to 10,000 BCE. So this is not common in all the books, which is whatever you are reading. Okay, this time period varies from book to book. Okay, usually we consider from time immemorial to 9,000 BCE. So there is also another interpretation regarding this 9,000 BCE. So here all these things, so that is Paleo, Meso, Neo and Neo, Chalcolithic, they are called as the cultures. We don't call them as the civilized societies, we call them as the cultures. And eventually what has happened? Eventually in India we see the rise of civilization in our country. So we see the civilization in our country. Okay, so where we will talk about the Indus Valley civilization. This is actually a misnomer. Lot of aspirants and lot of educators also I see, they commonly, and even in anthropology, even in UPSC syllabus also it is mentioned that it is Indus Valley civilization, but that is incorrect. IVC को क्या करके बुलाना चाहिए? It should be referred as Harappan civilization. Why it should be referred as Harappan civilization? Because according to the convention of archaeology, whatever the site which is discovered the first time, the entire civilization should be given that time. In that context, in India, regarding this civilization, the first discovered site is Harappa, and the entire civilization should be given that name, that is the Harappan civilization. We will discuss about the Harappan civilization here. Like whatever you read in history, so वैसा हम यहाँ नहीं पढ़ेंगे. Okay, यहाँ हम कुछ और चीज़ों के बारे में पढ़ेंगे, in elaborately हम पढ़ेंगे. Okay, so this is 1.1 is talking about, and then moving on the second chapter. Second chapter it talks about the, so 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3. So these are the chapters which are mentioned in the syllabus. And then moving on, the second chapter talks about the demographic profile of India. So the demographic profile of India, and right now the census is not yet released. It is because of COVID pandemic which has hit us very hardly. So apart from that, if you carefully observe, okay, demographic profile of India, it constantly changes, and here we see 150 crore people who are staying in our country. The population is overwhelming, and how the demographic dividend is changing. So what are their mortality rates, what are the fertility rates, fecundity rates, and then fertility rates, इन सारे चीज़ों के बारे में हम यहाँ demographic profile of India. And apart from that, what else you actually study about how this profile is varying from place to place, from north to south, from west to east, how it is actually changing. इन सारे चीज़ों के बारे में सेकेंड चैप्टर में हम पढ़ेंगे. And now let us understand about the 3.1. 3.1 talks about the structure and nature of traditional Indian social system. So what is this traditional Indian social system is all about? Whenever you are talking about social, which implies that you are referring about the society. So society is made up of some people. Society में हम किसको find out करेंगे? Society is made up of some people. Okay, so there should be some regulation related to some people. Okay, so how you are regulating the society? Right now we have the highest law of land, that is called as constitution. Apart from that, are there any other regulation institutes which are present in our country? Religion acts such like that, culture, and then society also. So we will understand about the traditional, right from the ancient time, how the traditional system of India has flourished. So we study about the Varna system, we study about the caste system, we study about the Rina, we study about the rebirth, we study about the karma theory. So these are all and then we study about the ashrama dharma. So what are all these things? All of these things has acted like an controlling agent of the society during that period of time. How these institutions came into existence, what is their purpose, how they are regulating. We will try to understand all these concepts in this particular chapter, that is 3.1. And then moving on, 3.2 talks about the caste system in India. So if I ask you one question, so is Varna the first institution or the caste system? In दोनों में what has emerged earlier, Varna या caste? So the thing is that Varna system has emerged the first. So if you are talking about Varna, so let us actually go back to Rig Veda, the oldest surviving literature in the modern times also. And Rig Veda में क्या बोला जा रहा है? So in Rig Veda there are 10 mandalas. So how many mandalas are present in Rig Veda? Rig Veda consists of 10 chapters, and the 10th chapter is giving us reference about the Purusha Sukta. So it is giving us about a hymn that is called as Purusha Sukta. And according to Purusha Sukta, it is the early reference of the segregation of Indian society. So how it has actually segregated the Indian society? It said that there is a primordial man. So out of this primordial man, what has happened? From his head, Brahmins has emerged, and from his shoulders, Kshatriyas has emerged, from his thighs, Vaishyas has emerged, and from his foot, Shudras has emerged. Okay, so then, so it is a Varna system which has actually started earlier. And later what has happened, we have found different occupations. So many occupations came into existence. So based on this occupation only, caste system has emerged. Okay, so this is one such logic. And there is also another logic. It is because of the marriage practices, which we call it as hypogamy and hypergamy, or anuloma and pratiloma. Because of these marriage practices also, different section of people came into existence, and they are equally not able to accommodate all of them into the existing Varna system. And then what has happened? Eventually caste system has emerged. Okay, 3.2 talks about the caste system, is the origin of the caste system, and the different thinkers who has contributed to study about this caste system and how it is existing. Related to all these things, 3.2 talks about. And the 3.3 talks about the sacred complex and the nature man spirit complex. Extremely important. So all these topics are actually asked as questions. If you carefully observe last 15 years question, in सारे चीज़ों के बारे में, all the topics they are asked in the questions. Okay, so what is this sacred complex? For an example, if you are talking about the sacred complex, so I hope that all of you must have visited Tirumala and Tirupati. Okay, Tirumala Tirupati Devasthana. So I'll write here. Or for those aspirants who are from North India, okay, North India में the most important Kashi. Okay, आप काशी भी विजिट किए होंगे. So Kashi is a sacred complex. So within this sacred complex, okay, what are the things which are present? Why it is sacred? So we talk about the sacred geography, we talk about the people who are associated with that. So that is what is called as the sacred complex. And if you're talking about the nature, man, spirit complex, so man is heavily dependent on the nature, and he also believes in the spirit. Okay, he thinks that everything in the nature. So that is how the animistic religions have came into existence. So what do you mean by animism? Animism is worshipping of souls. Okay, the belief in the souls is called as animism. So I think that all of you must have watched this movie that is called as Kantara. In that Kantara movie, after dressing up as a godly man, after some period of time, that man actually he behaves in certain way. So we call that state as a possessed state, or we call that state as a trance state. In the trance state, he actually foresights, and he keeps on talking about certain things. What is that thing? So who has possessed him? He is possessed by the soul. Okay, so majority of the tribes, they believe in this animistic and animatic religions. Okay, so the man dependence on the soul, and how he is taking care of the nature, how he is heavily reliant on the nature, and how he is fearing about the nature. All these things are discussed in the nature, man, spirit complex. And next 3.4, in our country, if you carefully observe, in the 6th millennium BC, religious fermentation has happened. As a reason, what has happened? There happened some religions which has emerged. So there are 62 religions. So out of that, 62 religions has emerged in the 6th millennium BCE. How many religions has emerged? That is, the 62 religions has emerged. Out of these, 2 religions became popular, and they are still surviving in the modern time. They are called as Buddhism and Jainism. These 2 religions, all the 62 religions are called as heterodox religions, whereas the existing religion, that is the Vedic religion, is called as orthodox. So we will try to understand about the impact of Buddhism and Jainism. Apart from that, these 2 religions are born in our country. Okay, Islam, Christianity, they came to our country from the Middle East. Okay, so what are the impact of these particular religions on Indian society? What changes it has brought? इन सारे चीज़ों के बारे में 3.4 में हम पढ़ेंगे. So if you carefully understand about the Constitution of India, the Constitution of India recognizes 2 types of minorities. Who are those 2 types of minorities? We see the religious minorities, and then we understand about the linguistic minorities. So 3.4 is talking about those religious minorities and recognizing only 4 religions. Okay, we are not talking about the other religious minorities who are existing in our country. Okay, so and then the fourth chapter talks about the emergence, growth and development in India. So what is the emergence, growth and development in India? Anthropology. So how this particular field has established in India. Anthropology, how it has emerged, and what is the growth, and how it has developed in India, how it got established in India, who are the thinkers who has contributed, they have derived their inspiration from whom. All these things are mentioned in the chapter number 4. And moving on, chapter number 5, it talks about the Indian village. So Indian village system is extremely important. So why village system is important? Okay, so family is a basic unit of society. So family, so many families together, they make up some village. Okay, so many villages together, they make up some tribes. So many tribes together, they make up some Janapada, and different Janapadas together, they make up Mahajanapada. So they make up Mahajanapada. Okay, so then here we discuss about the village system. So what are the dynamics which are present in the village system? So what is a controlling agent? So how Indian villages are different from the villages which are existing in the global level? What are the unique characteristics we find in the Indian villages? All these things are discussed in the 5.1 chapter, that is called as the Indian village. And 5.2, it is talking about the linguistic and religious minorities. Both the minorities are mentioned here. Linguistic and religious minorities and their social, political and economic status. Okay, so you can use, so paper 2 में जो भी topics है, so all these things will be discussed to some extent, to little extent in Indian society, and उसके बाद में elaborately हम यहाँ पढ़ेंगे. Okay, so 5.2 talks about this. And then moving on 5.3. So 5.3 talks about the indigenous and the exogenous processes of socio-cultural change in the Indian society. What do you mean by indigenous? Changes within the society. And what do you mean by exogenous? The changes which are from outside of the society. So how these forces are changing the society in सारे चीज़ों के बारे में. What is their impact on the Indian society? How Indian society is influenced because of that. Okay, so we will try to witness about these changes in the 5.3 chapter. And moving on from chapter number 6, we will discuss about the tribal profile. So the tribal India के बारे में पढ़ेंगे. 6.1 talks about the tribal situation in India. So according to 2011 census, it mentions about 8.6% of the population in India, they belong to tribal population. So then we will discuss about the tribal population starting from 6.1, the tribal situation in India. Okay, so different types of that tribal profile भी हम cover करेंगे. And moving on, 6.2 talks about the problems of the tribal communities. What are those problems of the tribal communities? So let us actually mention few. Land alienation, don't you think it is a problem? Okay, they have socio-economic, educational backdrop. Okay, उन चीज़ों के बारे में पढ़ेंगे, उनके rehab के बारे में पढ़ेंगे. So this all talks about different case studies. So many case studies are also involved here. So 6.2 actually talks about the problems of the tribal communities in our country. And moving on, 6.3, it talks about the developmental project and their impact on the tribal displacement and the problem of the rehabilitation. So developmental projects, why developmental projects are a problem to the tribal profile? क्योंकि for the tribal people, wherever they are staying, they mark this territorial extinction. So they follow this territorial boundaries. They recognize the territorial boundaries. Imagine if this is a forest and they are staying in this forest, they actually mark these boundaries of the forest. They try to limit themselves to the forest. So they usually go for the simple basic type of subsistence economy. I mean to say hunting, gathering and primitive form of agriculture, which we call it as the shifting agriculture. So they follow this type of mechanism, and apart from that they gather the tubes, roots. Okay, इन सारे चीज़ों के बारे में उनको बहुत अच्छा से idea है, whatever which is available in forest. So imagine that if there are some minerals which are located here, and the government of India has actually given permission to the outsiders to do some mining activity, then what will happen? The outsiders will come into this society. So outsiders in the tribal language, they are called as Dikus. When the Dikus enter, what will happen? That will become a threat to the existing socio-cultural, religious and economic situation. So that is the reason they usually don't encourage the outsiders to come and settle into their system, because they are very vulnerable. So even though the outsiders are coming, if they have got employed them into their work, maximum what work they will do? They will be wage laborers. They will be employed as a wage laborers, and probably these people are the most exploited people by the outsiders. So we will try to understand about these developmental projects, how they are such a burden on this tribal society, because if they need to vacate from, if you want to vacate all the tribal people from this place, okay, so we have to create, that is the government of India should create so proper rehabilitation for these people. What kind of rehab is suitable for them? They have to create such situation where they find their home in the new land also. That is practically very difficult. So we will try to understand about the developmental projects and the impact of the tribal displacement and the problems of rehabilitation and the different types of problems which has arisen in India, how the tribals has retaliated, how they have safeguarded their trees, चिपको मूवमेंट के बारे में पढ़ेंगे, नर्मदा बचाओ के बारे में पढ़ेंगे, सब बहुत सारे चीज़ों के बारे में 6.3 टॉपिक में हम पढ़ेंगे. And the 7.1 talks about the problems of the exploitation and deprivation of the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward classes in India. Okay, so if you carefully observe, here we are talking about the problems which are faced by the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and the backward classes. So all the three of them, they actually get some reservation in educational institutions, reservation in the jobs. Okay, इनको reservation दिया हुआ है. Why they are actually getting reservation? Because historically they are backward. If you go back into history, okay, especially these SCs, that is the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, they are considered as what? They are considered as the untouchables, the problems which are faced by them. So यही यहाँ हम पढ़ेंगे problems and how these people are exploited, and then we will also understand about the constitutional safeguards. We will also understand about the policy formulation by the government of India, how the government of India is supporting them in their particular thing. We will discuss about all these things here. Okay, and then moving on, 7.2 talks about the social change and the contemporary tribal societies. So what are these tribal societies? So government, that is president will actually notify who are the tribal people in our country. President, by a notification in the gazette, she will actually mention, he or she will mention, so and so people are recognized as the tribal people if their upliftment is enough done, and then what will happen, they will be removed from this ST list. Okay, the social change, so how these people are changing, because world is progressing and there are also some tribal people who are progressing, and there are also some people who come under this category, they are called as PVTGs, particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So we will try to understand about the social change and the contemporary tribal societies, how the contemporary tribal societies are there. Are they still dwelling into the same old practices which they have continued right from the ancient times, or they are also changing? Okay, इन सारे चीज़ों के बारे में 7.2 में हम पढ़ेंगे. And the 7.3 talks about the concept of ethnicity. So ethnic problems, there are different ethnic problems which happen in India, the Khalistani issue, and the greater Naga limb, Assam maybe Ulfa people has actually conducted, and the Dravid Nadu people, once upon a time it all started with the Justice Party, वहाँ से Periyar, and eventually DMK party. So till 1962, till Indo-China war, Tamil Nadu actually doesn't want to be part of our Union of India. Eventually, right now I think they have made a pact with themselves, and there is no such chaos which is happening there. Okay, we will try to understand about these type of ethnic problems. Apart from that, Jammu and Kashmir के issue के बारे में पढ़ेंगे, abrogation of Article 370. So we will try to discuss about the different type of ethnic problems which has arisen in India. So how they are suppressed and how India is managing. Okay, why they are actually fighting, what is the cause, is that cause real or not, is that cause should be supported or not. We will try to understand about all these things in the chapter 7.3. And moving on, 8.1. 8.1 talks about the impact of Hinduism. Once again we are seeing Buddhism, Christianity, Islam and other religions in the tribal societies. Earlier we have understood about Hinduism के बारे में नहीं, but we have understood about the impact of Buddhism, Jainism, Islam and Christianity on the mainstream India. And then we will try to understand Hinduism and the other religions, their impact on the tribal societies. Because tribal societies, if you carefully observe, they follow usually animism, animatism, totemism, fetishism, nature worship. These are the common type of religious practice what they usually follow. Okay, for those tribal people, even Hinduism is an alien religion, but there are also some tribal people who has adapted themselves to Hinduism, and there are also some tribal people who has embraced Islam. There are also some tribal people who has embraced Christianity, and there are only few tribal people who has embraced Buddhism. Jainism to bhuli jao. Okay, so we will try to understand about all this concept here. So here carefully we have mentioned about Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, lekin we have actually did not mention Jainism. Apart from that, there are also other religions which has impacted the tribal profile. So then moving on, 8.2 talks about the tribe and the nation state. What is tribe? Tribes माने कौन है? So if you carefully understand about the tribes, tribes are the people who has a unique culture, who has isolated geographically or psychologically and mostly speak a common dialect. इन लोगों को हम क्या करके बुलाएंगे? ट्राइबल पीपल. एंड व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय नेशन स्टेट? व्हाट इज़ नेशन, व्हाट इज़ स्टेट? इन सारे चीज़ों के बारे में हम इस टॉपिक में पढ़ेंगे. वंस अगैन very very important. All these topics whatever we have studied, everything has appeared in the examination. Whole chapter is actually asked as a question. Just tribe, nation, state, describe, explain, okay, ऐसा पूछा जाता है. And then 9.1 talks about the history of administration of tribal areas. Schedule number 5 and 6 they talk about the tribal areas, okay, and what is the history, who has actually ruled. It starts from prior to pre-British era, from the pre-British era to colonial period, and after the colonial period to the modern time, what are the laws and who has governed and how they have taken care, so how they are exploited, and eventually what laws came into existence. So this all is dealt in the 9.1 chapter. And then 9.2 talks about the role of anthropology in tribal and rural development. So what is the role of anthropology? Anthropology plays a very vital role because anthropologists, they have this close rapport with the tribal people. So why we have a close rapport with the tribal people? Because in anthropology we follow fieldwork tradition. In the fieldwork tradition, where an anthropologist should select a field, he should visit the field, he has to stay there for some time, he should do a participant observation, he should conduct some interviews, and after that he will give an ethnographic data. So because he has some good idea about that particular tribal people, so usually Government of India, it actually considers the anthropologist's opinion while formulating policies for them. So anthropology definitely plays that impact while policy formulation. It also gives insights to the Government of India. And 9.3 talks about the contribution of anthropology to the understanding of regionalism. So right now I am taking class in Hyderabad. So once upon a time Telangana is part of Andhra Pradesh. Okay. So Andhra Pradesh is the first state which got separated from Madras presidency on the basis of linguistic lines after 1953. Okay, 1953 में, actually 1952 में हुआ है, so 1953, so officially it was announced. So in this context, there are different regionalism which has happened in our country, like from Jharkhand, like Bihar, from Bihar Jharkhand is separated, from Madhya Pradesh Chhattisgarh is separated. Okay, ऐसे regionalism के बारे में हम पढ़ेंगे. We will try to understand about the regional concepts, communalism, and then the ethnic and the political movements which has happened. Okay, so all these things will be discussed in this particular chapter. Now let us understand about the reference books for the anthropology. So if you are talking about anthropology, so I have mentioned this physical anthropology in the first case, क्योंकि why physical anthropology I have mentioned in the first case, क्योंकि majority of the students they fear about this physical anthropology. ऐसा डरने की कुछ भी चीज़ नहीं है, it is so simple. And EPG Pathshala content for MA, please refer this book. Apart from that, PNAD physical anthropology, ST Gangen human genetics, Ember and Ember, Stein and Rowe physical anthropology. So these are some important. Apart from that, IGNO material, you can refer them also. Okay, so these are all the some common book materials which are available. And moving on, for the socio-cultural anthropology, so there is a one book which is titled as Socio-cultural anthropology. The title of the book is, so I'll change the color of the pen. The name of the book itself is Socio-cultural anthropology. Right now this is available in Amazon also. Amazon maybe it is actually available, and this is co-authored by Mohan sir and me. Mohan Reddy sir and Shailaja Reddy. So it is co-authored by me. So it consists of entire topics in socio-cultural anthropology, and there is also another book which is going to get released that is related to anthropological thought. Okay, please refer that book. That book is very interesting because we have incorporated a lot of case studies, and we also tried to fill in those gaps which other books did not satisfy. Okay, so apart from that, we have EPG Pathshala content for MA, introducing sociology, NCERT class 11, humanity and introduction to cultural anthropology, Ember and Ember, and introduction to social anthropology by D.N. Majumdar. And then for the anthropological theories, that is unit chapter number 6 in paper 1, anthropological thought, इसको हम anthropological thought करके बुलाएंगे. EPG Pathshala content for MA, an introduction to anthropological thought, Makanja, Ember and Ember, history of anthropological thought by Vijay S. Upadhyay, Gaya Pandey. And then for archaeological anthropology, which covers under 1.8 A and B paper may paper 2 may 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So once again refer EPG Pathshala content for MA. Prehistoric archaeology by D.K. Bhattacharya, Ember and Ember, an outline of Indian prehistory by D.K. Bhattacharya. So additional resources for paper 1. So YouTube video crash course of anthropology series. Okay, so we are going to take this. So please subscribe to our channel if you really like our content. Do like, share and subscribe. And then online courses, free online courses of anthropology. So we are also offering 5 classes as a free online course, and apart from that we are charging very basic and minimal thing. You can refer that fee in the description link. And then journal articles, American anthropologists. So you can refer all these topics and report statistics of United World population prospects. New articles stays updated with the latest findings and discoveries. Museums and sites, virtual tours of human evolution museums. And so these are all some books which you can refer for paper number 1. Now let us understand about the book sources for the paper 2. Indian society के लिए, that is chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 and 9. Refer EPG Pathshala content for MA, Indian society, NCERT. So I apologize, they should be in uppercase. Okay, class 12th. And then Indian anthropology by Nadeem Hasnain. Modernization of Indian tradition by Yoginder Singh. Then moving on for the tribal India, that is from chapters from starting from 6 to 9. Okay, EPG Pathshala content for MA, Indian society, NCERT, class 12th. Tribal India by Nadeem Hasnain, the tribal culture of India by LP Vidyardhi. Okay, additional sources for the paper 2. गवर्नमेंट रिपोर्ट्स को आप पढ़ना चाहिए, दैट इज़ द हाई लेवल कमिटी ऑफ द सोशो इकोनॉमिक हेल्थ एजुकेशनल स्टेटस ऑफ ट्राइबल कम्युनिटीज बाय Zaza report. So we call it as the Zaza report. Virginius Zaza 2014 में he is appointed by the government of India to understand about the tribal profile in our country. And apart from that, report of the task force of development and welfare of tribal communities by Dr. Narendra Jadhav. Reports and data from the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, Tribal Research Institutes. So you have to follow about all these things, but provided if you enroll to our classes, there is no need for you to do this research. So all this research is already done by us, because right starting from our career, right from aspirants to being an educators, and we have this 10 plus years of experience in this world, in this field. Okay, so we have already understood, we have understood about those lacunae, we have understood what content should be provided. So we are coming up with a foolproof material. Okay, so that will be enough for you for your preparation. And the other so let us actually restore the reference book, Ember and Ember, Upadhyaya and Gaya, History of Anthropological Thought, Nadeem Hasnain, Indian Anthropology or Tribal Anthropology, Prehistoric Archaeology by D.K. Bhattacharya, Igno Man, and maybe Bharat videos on tribals. बहुत अच्छा videos है, please go through them. Okay, even I watch them even today also. Okay, Bhuria, Zaza, Shilo, B.K. Roy Burman, Karge, मोटा कमिटी रिपोर्ट्स. ओके, इन सारे चीज़ों के बारे में आपको पढ़ना ही पड़ेगा. एंड द रेफरेंस वेबसाइट्स, नाउ लेट अस सी द रेफरेंस वेबसाइट्स. www.tribal.gov.in, Ministry of Tribal Affairs portal. www.ncest.nic.in, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes portal. And then www.tribal.nic.in, Tribal Welfare Statistics and Data. People's Archive of Rural India, that is called as PARI. It is an online platform that documents the rural India stories, including those of the tribal communities. So these are the best sources to understand about the tribal profile. And then if you are talking about the magazines, we see the Yojana, monthly magazine published by Government of India. यहाँ योजना कुरुक्षेत्र में बहुत सारे articles will be printed in that, but please be picky what you have to read and what you should not actually read. Okay, Kurukshetra, it is also a monthly magazine published by the Ministry of Rural Development, issues on tribal development. Okay, and the Down to Earth magazine covering environmental and development issues. Okay, journals, Man in India, journals of indigenous and tribal peoples and development. Okay, so this is all about the syllabus discussion. So in the first class and the second class, we have discussed about the doubts related to aspirants. Okay, so I have addressed some common doubts, and if you have additional doubts, please mention in the comment section. I will definitely reply to all of your doubts. And apart from that, we have also discussed about the syllabus which is related to paper 1 and paper 2. And in tomorrow's topic, let us actually start the sessions. Okay, 1.1 हम पढ़ेंगे, chapter 1.1 in paper 1, that is मीनिंग डेवलपमेंट, मीनिंग स्कोप एंड डेवलपमेंट ऑफ एंथ्रोपोलॉजी. इस टॉपिक को नेक्स्ट सेशन में हम पढ़ेंगे. स्टे ट्यून, विल मीट यू अगेन इन द नेक्स्ट सेशन. टिल देन टेक केयर एंड बाय बाय.